Well, welcome to Artist Revue. You know, this is our alternative show for when a restaurant is not available or some technological problem that we sometimes experience. And we get to bring you a whole new genre of other important elements that go on in New Orleans. Besides, of course, the rhythms and the restaurants, the artists, the gift of art is so important to our city and just rounds it all to make it such a cultural event. So we're pleased to do these shows. We wish we could bring them to you regularly, but as right now we just don't have another slot. But what we're going to do today is we have a gracious young artist who's brought in a smattering of his work, and we want to introduce you to him, take a look at those pieces, and tell you where you can see he's got an upcoming event which will feature even more of his work that you'll see. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome to the show Tony Nozerro. Welcome, Tony. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we appreciate you coming. We really do. Let's talk a little bit about yourself before we take a in-depth look at your work. I always have to ask my guests, whether you're a native or not. That is important, but we always like to know if we've got a native on board here.
Well, not exactly a native.
Okay.
But I've been here about 6 years.
Okay. May we ask from whence you came?
Well, I moved here from New York City, though. Wow. I was only there for a few years. Before that, I lived in Texas for a while and grew up in Wisconsin, actually.
Oh, but, great. Well, what lured you to our city? Our tourist commission always likes to know that.
Yeah. Well, I was a musician for a long time. I still play music, but did lots of touring in the past, and we'd always come through New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, for the music.
And I always had a soft spot for the city, so I kind of always knew eventually I'd find my way here. And so,
well, when did you make, if there is a transition from music, I mean, I know you say you still play, but when did you start changing directions to put more emphasis on art from the music?
Yeah, it was. It's been actually about a year, almost.
Oh, real
almost
new.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've painted for years and years, but it's mostly been something I've done on the side. But about a year ago, the band my band was called Drums and Tuba, and we did lots of touring the last 10 or so years. Made a lot of records and stuff like that, and it was kind of coming to an end, and I've always wanted to be a painter, and so at a certain point, about a year ago, I kind of pulled the plug on the band and just started doing art full-time, which was great because before that, it was like between tours, I'd try to do a couple paintings here and there, and it was fun and all, but I couldn't really
focus.
Yeah, I couldn't really focus.
Yeah, art probably, even though most people don't understand that, is probably the most labor intensive. You can't just, how people say, well, in a book writing, maybe I wrote a line today, but it's the amount of time to get that line. It's the same thing. Maybe you put 4 strokes on the canvas or whatever, but the time to get that is not 4 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you have to spend equally. It's similar to music or any other craft. I mean, you really have to kind of just
work at it,
hunker down and lock yourself in a room and go at it for hours and hours and days and months, and before anything can sometimes evolve.
Excuse me. What's good, Tony has, since Katrina, I believe, has landed in one of our favorite person's studio, really art concubine, not concubine, what do you call it, incubator, Esther's Art Egg Studio, which I was so glad to find. I just found out it reopened. I didn't even know till I read an article in the newspaper about them putting a new solar roof, and they've got a lot of not-for-profits that are going green, that we're all doing in our rebuilding. But also, a lot of the artist space has been reclaimed either by new artists like Tony here, or additional returns of some of our previous artists. So they were a great source for us in the show, and that is a great place for an artist to actually spend that time that's required without the distractions of being like at home or in someplace else where there were numerous disturbances. So there's all different spaces and sizes. So for an artist out there, when there's an availability, I would certainly check with them because I think they're extremely reasonable, but also got great capability, potential for you. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about your work. You're not in oil. What is your seem to be your favorite medium?
Actually, all of these, I believe, are acrylic. I mostly work in acrylic and watercolor now.
For people who do not know what acrylic, I mean, I know, and again, we're getting basic 101 art 101, but again, most people know oil. Yeah. And a lot of people will recognize the watercolor. But how does one distinguish an acrylic, being strictly the viewer as opposed to the artisan, from an oil or one of the other media?
Well, sometimes it's hard to tell just by looking at it, but oftentimes acrylic has a different kind of sheen to it. Certainly working with the different mediums or different paints, it's like a world of difference, and it's completely different than oil. It dries fast. It's very easy to manipulate, which I love. And I've really only started using acrylics this last year or something. I mostly did oil painting before that.
And as we'll see, you're doing it on all methods from canvas to panel to paper. So great variety, which helps with regard to not only size and shape, but also financial for someone who's a collector, along those lines. One thing we did, what we want to say up front, and we're going to repeat it at the end of some of the places you'll see Tony. It's very, very important you remember this. He has his own exhibit coming up at the Terrence Sanders Gallery, starting, when is it?
Opening is March 8th.
March the 8th. And as for those who know our local art network, at those openings, it's always a great reception on a Saturday night for a few hours, 5 to 9 or 6 to 9, with maybe some music, maybe some refreshment. But the important thing is it's the feature, and usually a lot of the galleries stay open that night for you to go see, while you, instead of just one-stop shopping, going around and seeing a lot of the artisans' work. But it'll be there for a month. Is that right?
Well, actually, it'll be a little over 2 weeks.
Oh, over 2 weeks.
It'll be a short
mistake.
one.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, that is Terrence Sanders is in the, I believe it's 936 with Royal Street in the quarter.
Yes, sir, 936.
Great. Well, again, we'll come back to that at the end, but just in case you have to miss the end of the show and you'd like to see, because what we did today was make sure that we weren't going to be giving away his show, and asked him to bring predominantly pieces that are not in the show so you can see his work and then see the rest of the new stuff at the gallery opening. Let's see. Is there anything else we need to know about you or your style of work before we move forward?
I guess we can just start talking about the pieces. And maybe.
Well, what I'm going to do is, bear with me, folks, is reach on down, and we're going to go ahead and take this first. Now, this is a smaller piece, obviously, and this is on paper. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's, again, acrylics. Are we got on that? Am I all right on that? I'm shaking too much?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. Is there a title at all of this?
This one is untitled. It's just
And it's about 12 by 12 square, or you're almost?
I think it's about 9 by 12.
9 by 12.
Yeah.
But you were talking about it. I had turned it the wrong way, and I gave it, of course, the wrong impression of what I saw, and I don't want to bring that in. So tell us what you thought about in doing this particular piece.
Well, a lot of these, especially the small ones, I try not to have too much of an idea of what I'm doing before I start. And I kind of, I build up with layers and I sort of erase and add and kind of move the paint around until something kind of resonates with me, and then I follow it. I
believe you said you thought maybe the profile would be a profile of a person.
Yeah. To me, this is a portrait, and that's a profile.
Love that, and that's what I'm thinking about acrylics. Even though some oils can get the vibrancy, to me the acrylics really magnify that vibrancy. So that's what I like them about, and especially today's paintings, which most people like to collect, are looking for that color, that brightness that really comes out in acrylic. So let's take it now. This was of this little series. This is my favorite. I had to inquire on this, and this is really beautifully done. Anything you would tell us on this? Again, a small one. What size were we saying?
Yeah, it's the same 9 by 12.
Okay. Vertical rather than horizontal.
Yeah, acrylic on paper. This was kind of a sort of a floral kind of
like a vase or something with some flowers.
Yeah, it's sort of abstract version of that. Yeah,
very pretty. Again, the colors, a lot of primary colors, but the reds, the yellow, blues, just really vibrant. Like I say, of these three that we're showing right now, this was one of them. I already told you there's about three in the what we brought today. I really I admire so much, but this is certainly one of my favorites of the smaller pieces. Now this one is very unusual, I think, and I kind of like it as well. Even though again, it's more in the. Where do you want me to go with that? Okay, how about that? What can we say on that?
Well, this is an acorn, and
okay. Again, about the same size. On paper.
Yeah, on paper.
So it's an acorn that's dropped. Obviously, it looks like.
Yeah. It's I use a lot of these check marks in my paintings.
Okay.
You'll see it in a couple other ones coming up too.
So any meaning to it, or are you keeping that to yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. You could sort of draw whatever you want to from it. I mean, it's kind of rain. It's kind of leaves falling. It's it could be a lot of things, but.
But once again, I hate to tell you, I looked at it upside down. I don't know what the people to say, but it looked like the top of the acorn. Anyway, okay, now let's take a look at something. One a really neat one, if you don't mind. Much larger piece, but very, very symbolic. And Tony was nice enough to explain this to me. Let's see if we can get this. Do you want to lift it up, or is it all right like this? All right. We okay?
Okay.
Okay. Now this is obviously is this on canvas or panel on board?
Yeah. Well, this is on loose canvas.
And when you say loose canvas, what do you mean by that?
Well, it was painted on canvas that wasn't stretched.
Not stretched.
So,
okay. But again, that's something a term I hadn't used, even though I was figuring out, but someone else might not know. So loose, not stretched. Okay.
Yeah, and
that's why it's got a little play in it, huh?
Yeah, okay. And it's affixed to board. But this one is called Zil. And
what is it again?
It's called Zil.
Zil.
Z-I-L.
Okay.
And
it's again one vibrant green, and for them who just look superficially, it's just a convertible. But if you really start looking at this convertible, and if you notice that the passenger side, when we pull away, is missing, there's a real reason for that. And go ahead and tell us, Tony, why this particular convertible is so unusual.
Well, this is the JFK famous last ride, I suppose.
Okay.
And it's
very significant.
Yeah. It's
without and subtle too. That's what I like about it. It's not something gory or really blatantly red, white, and blue, something like that. So
right.
I really like the subtlety of it and the colors, the green and the black, and it just really make a statement. Now, what would you say the size? Again, this has a frame of like pine, so it's really great. Already framed as it is. What do you think? This is about a 4 foot long, and
it's about
maybe 2
by 4.
2 by 4.
Pretty close to that, yeah.
Well, this is the prettiest 2 by 4 I think you've ever seen. Really, but again, very, very significant piece, and for someone who is a collector or not, this would be great because of its horizontal stature over a sofa or a sofa table, or you're looking for something over the mantle, because it's just got really great presence. So, plus it has a lot of little more meaning to it than some just whimsical or something that's just strictly an impression. Okay, let's go on, and we're going to take a look at another one. Now, this one is really three-dimensional in scope. It's framed for you. Let's see if we can get it. So this is really would this be considered a collage, or?
Yeah.
People don't know collage is like a mixture of media and again giving it some depth because there's different stuff in it. Why don't you tell us? Obviously framed. What size would you think this would be?
That's about 18 wide and 26 high.
Okay, that's
something like that.
Close enough, folks. And this is on panel or paper, huh?
Yeah, it's paper. Actually, a friend of mine found this old book of receipts from this rail joint company. It used to be, I guess, in New Orleans.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
You can see the 3D effect. It actually projects out from the painting itself, and it was a book of receipts. Is that what you say?
Yeah, with blueprints and receipts and letters, and I still have the bulk of the papers, and I'm sort of doing different things with them.
I use other areas. Really, and the rest being blue. Just great combination of colors. Do you have a title at all on this or no?
This one is currently untitled, but I should probably.
I think it deserves one if you think you're going to chance to put a little time on it.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Really, and this is the only one we have here that is a collage, or more than that is got it. And now this is such an important part of contemporary work, having that 3D effect of the collage as opposed to strictly straight on canvas or straight on panel. So, excuse me, this would really be great for someone. And again, with that black background, really highlights the primary colors that you're using. So I think it's really lovely. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at another one if you don't mind. What we got for Tony?
All right. We got this one here.
Wow, this again, doesn't this knock your socks off? Look at the vibrancy of the blue background. Now this is canvas, yes.
Yeah, canvas.
And again, it's what I call that gallery wrapped.
Yeah.
For people who don't know what gallery wrapped is that nowadays, especially a lot of the contemporary work, you don't want to put one of these frames. It's so hard to find something appropriate. So it's really an extension of the painting. The painting will continue around the sides and the top, so it is self-contained and does not require any framing at all. So it is whoever came up with that. And I'm not enough of an art student to know who did that, but I think it's a real excellent situation because, especially with a lot of contemporary decors, you really don't want a big heavy frame. So it really looks great. Now I noticed that the title is titled on you when you're looking at it called Royalty. Tell us about the subject matter and how we get that title for those who might want to know.
Yeah, I like to use a little bit of text in my paintings, and this one, it's a sort of a portrait of maybe he's a king or something.
That's what I was thinking, either an African king.
Yeah. He's got a headdress and a bird on his head, and the check marks again are falling from the sky. Maybe it's, some sort of currency or something.
And this is a medium-sized piece.
Yeah.
What do you think this is? What's the size on it about?
It's probably 2 feet by 2.5 feet, maybe 24 by.
I think a little bigger than that.
A little bigger than that?
Yeah, I think maybe 3 feet. Oh no, not well. Anyway, close.
Yeah.
But a little larger than some of the others we've looked at. But again, just a beautiful that blue and the blue and brown kind for people who are decorators. I know that's an important color combination for homes, for rooms. So that would be lovely. So this would be a really nice piece and very relevant with a lot of the tribal art that's getting a lot of prominence nowadays. Okay, let's take a look. Now, this is a meaningful one. Again, I didn't take the time to read it first. Just was enthralled by the colors. Let's see if we can get. This is again a framed piece, but this one is on board, right? This is, so we see the back. And why don't you tell us? Do you have a title? If not, read to the folks in case they can't read the script.
Well, I'm not sure I have a title for it. It's Lafitte, St. Bernard, C.J. Pete, and B.W. Cooper.
Do we recognize any of that?
Well, I would hope if anybody...
but they've been so prominent lately with the rebuilding or the unbuilding of our city. So I didn't know. Is this a relatively new piece? And maybe timely?
Yeah, it's a couple months.
And I just thought, of course, that to me looked like a tombstone, R.I.P. You don't have the obvious, but to me it was just, but then done in such vibrant colors, so it's not morbid or anything like that. So really very cool. Now this is a nice size, again, much smaller, maybe 12 by 18. You think something like that? So it would be great for any size room, but really great colors, and again a little meaning there to bring something additional to your work.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm pretty vague with my storytelling with the stuff, but other times it's a little more obvious.
Yeah, but still, I think that adds a lot to it because some things, could become offensive to some people if that straightforward with it. So the idea of a little subtlety here, I think, doesn't anything do to reduce the significance of the situation, but also makes just a great piece of art in itself. Okay, well, let's take a look at another. We're moving along. This is great. Let's see what we have. You gonna take that big one?
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah, this is my size. Folks, I guess you know for me, I really like monumental pieces. And the vibrancy of the yellow here, he has another piece as well. This is really tremendous. Now, this is a piece that's in your exhibit?
Yeah, this will be...
This and the other yellow, we'll see another yellow piece later. This is really large, so this is at least, 3.5 feet tall? Mm-hmm. And maybe, about 2.5 feet wide?
Yeah.
Again, it's on
board.
On board.
It's on panel.
Gallery wrap, so the wonderful iridescent yellow wraps all the way around. And it has, was that Benotto?
Yeah, Benotto. It's this is a guy on a bicycle. I did it this last summer when I was riding my bike a lot. And Benotto's they make bikes, road bikes.
Ah, okay.
And,
I'm not a big bicyclist, obviously, and so I didn't realize that's like a well-known Italian brand.
Yeah,
I guess,
Italian bikes. Yeah.
But now these. I can't remember. Are these the colors of the Italian flag, red, yellow, and green?
Well,
red,
not
white,
quite.
Green? Okay.
Not quite, but...
I thought maybe that's why you also added to that, because that'd be very significant.
Yeah.
But I love the portrait, the face. Mm-hmm. It's just very, to me, a lot of Modigliani kind of look to some of your facial portraits.
Yeah, and this one is both acrylic and oil stick.
Ah, okay. Oil stick. Now, if people don't, if you saw last time we had Artist Revue, we had an artist on who used exclusively. If you remember, for those who saw that show, and it had that same kind of vibrancy, but it looked like oil. It actually looks like a giant Crayola, and he had brought some to show us. And it's like, to me, the newest thing. I might not know how new it is, but it was just so creative to be able to use it. So now you can take oil in this form and do work, and it's great, I think, to mix it. So we've got a really great mixture here of the oil stick and, of course, the acrylic. Tremendous piece, and again, like I said, we are getting to more and more large pieces that are so important today and people who collect. I think it's becoming the wall decoration instead of just going to the local place and putting sconces and everything up. I think people are finding good art that they like and in a large piece, and it really is enough to decorate an entire wall. So this is the kind of stuff that I really love and really be proud to do at home. So, and the title would Benotto or anything else to it?
Yeah. I think it's just called Benotto. Yeah.
Really great, folks. We forgot to tell you, if you're interested in calling up, our lines are always open. The director has those two lines, hopefully, for you. I know we don't have a lot of people on Wednesdays, but of course it shows on Saturdays, but we're doing live still. We still haven't gone back to our Saturday treatment. But if you'd like to call in and ask anything about this show or ask Tony here anything particular about his work, he'll certainly be glad to answer you. We did mention about Terrence Sanders' gallery coming up on March 8th, and we do have several other several other events and other places you can see Tony's work. You're seeing, like I say, today the majority are not in the upcoming exhibit, but this particular one is. All right, let's go back to a couple of the ones I have on my side. And this, again, is a framed piece. And this is on, I'm not sure what is this. Cardboard?
That's on board. Wood panel. Yeah.
Now this is one of my. I told you I had about 3 favorites, and this was my second favorite. Again, because of the vibrancy of the back of the purples, I'm kind of addicted. I got a lot of the purple paintings, different shades. I saw this as a portrait or a profile. Do you have a title for this at all?
This is portrait.
Portrait.
Yeah.
Simple enough. Hopefully you all see the same thing we're seeing. A lot of almost like a cubist. This was kind of reflected in the first piece, but because the piece was so small, it really didn't show on camera. But now, so this really looks like the blown up of the inset of the original piece. I know it's not that, but it's very similar in structure, and I really love the geometrical designs, not Art Deco or anything, very abstract, very contemporary, but really almost like cubism in the facial structure. But you can see the lips, the neck, shoulders, etc., and just really vibrant. Again, this is a smaller piece, not too small, maybe about 18 by 2, maybe about 12 by 18, 12 by 20, something like that. Again, it's framed, but it's not really a gallery wrapped. Although no, it is gallery wrapped. It's painted with those colors on the side. So Again, you got to have a muted kind of wall. You can't put this on anything already painted, but I guarantee it'll bring out any wall and be a great source of conversation. So this, like I say, is my favorite number 2. Now, let's see, I got a few more before we go to some of the others that he's brought. Now these are, I didn't see these to just the last minute. He had these wrapped. These are magnificently framed, and this is great for an office, for a studio, really a bedroom or dining room. And it's lovely, very, very contemporary, almost rosewood mahogany frame. And tell us a little bit about this one, please.
Yeah, well, this is called Saturn.
Saturn?
Yeah.
Named after the planet?
The planet.
Those are the rings.
Yeah, those are the rings.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I have a lot of these types of, like these next 2 that you have. I do the Bywater Art Market on the 3rd Saturday of.
We'll talk about that a little bit more detail, but right.
And I got a lot of what I bring there are these type of things.
I would see these as being extremely commercially available and desirable, because of the magnificent framing and the nature of the work. The piece can be used both traditional or with antiques. It's not limited to its decor or something. And like I say, it can be used great as an office piece. It's got a white. Is it on a white matte frame, or is that the thing itself?
I believe it's on paper.
Paper.
And
okay.
And it's
but the way it actually looks like a white mat.
Yeah.
So really, like I say, that again makes it just look like something very well done, and kind of an aquamarine background with the planet Saturn. Okay, excellent. And this is almost a square, maybe 15 by 15 or something like that. So a nice size, not too big, so could go in any kind of wall structure. And here's another one. This is the right way up, huh?
Yeah.
Framed the same way, but turned on its more on the vertical side. And the colors. Now again, what can we say about this particular one?
Well, this one's called Potemkin.
What's that again?
Potemkin.
Oh, okay.
The old movie Battleship Potemkin.
For those who don't know that, I knew it was familiar, but I couldn't remember what the name of the movie was.
There's that classic scene where the baby carriage is bouncing down the stairs. And so that's kind of where I came up with that. And I tend to, with some of my pieces, I tend to go to the movies and pick out little things that I've remembered along the way from all these different scenes and stuff, and just things that are significant, to me. And this is one of them that just sort of stuck out.
It was a recent movie with a similar situation where there was some explosion. I can't remember what it was, and so the mother was pushing the, and then next thing you know, the cart was going by itself. Unfortunately, but anyway, the colors here. What's great is kind of like about it is much more subtle, more the earth tone, which is totally different than the others. That's what I see. That this one really, for those people that say, well, no, the vibrancy is not what they like. I think this is something that certainly could meet a household, someone who's interested more in the natural tones or something a lot more subtle. So I think this is, again, really, really well done, and also for that. All right, let's see. Got a few more. Why don't we go, before we go to these last two, why don't we go to some of the ones in the back here on the easel? Now, these are on paper, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead. This is not an advertisement for Target. It's called Hook and Sling. Is that the title?
Yeah, that's the title.
And this again is acrylic?
It's acrylic on paper.
Very, very good. Again, look. Again, we're just moving away from the vibrancy here. Again, more to the other tones.
And this is from an old Eddie Bow track from, I guess, what was it, late 60s, probably?
I believe
69,
you.
maybe.
For someone who's not been in that long, that's great.
Yeah.
So this is, for those who've never seen something like this, folks, this is a phonograph record, a turntable. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes,
all you kids watching this show, what is he talking about? I was going, ear. This is a full-grade turntable. Okay, tell us a little bit more. And it's Eddie Bow, and this is obviously, is that just from the song? Or is
the song is called The Hook and the Sling, and it's just kind of inspired by that tune.
Not only for music enthusiasts, but again, something I think would be great in even an office. It's very, contemporary, but at the same time not really obtuse or anything. And I love this. Tell us a little bit about this effect here in the background. I really like what you've done there.
Yeah, well, the process, I think what I did was I I put
scraping things
Yeah,
off?
yeah. I used a paint scraper.
Okay.
And scraped the paint across it and created the textures. And I'm pretty sure I had some cardboard behind it, which is how you get these lines coming down.
Sure.
And yeah, I just worked with layers and.
Well, it really does. We talked about the 3D on the other piece, which actually had things projecting forward, but that effect here. Not only the texture that you can feel, but also blends more for the turntable to even be reflected outward. So really a great idea and a great use of that particular thing. All right, let's take another one down and take a look here. I'll get it. All right. Go ahead. Oh, great. Look at it.
This is a new one. This was virtually still wet. I mean, it's not really wet.
I hope
but
it's not wet. The back of the other.
No, I did this yesterday. And it's called Nest. It's mostly acrylic and a few pieces of paper on there that drips. So it's a little mixed medium, but mostly acrylic.
Let's talk about that a little bit. It's called Nest, and presumably that would be some bird's nest?
Yeah.
Okay, and this actually maybe would be the bird as well, and his hawk? His head, his wings?
He seems like those are his wings, and he's kind of just standing there.
But now, what about the central, the body of the the vibrancy? What's going on there? Is that?
Well, that's just the body of the bird, I suppose.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you were projecting the nest inside. I'm not trying to put too many things in your words in your mouth, but I mean, I was trying to see, what that could be. But really great. Would these be his legs?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a bird portrait, and I actually I tend to lots of animals and birds seem to come out of my work when I'm not thinking too hard about what I'm doing.
Oh, really? Well, we haven't noticed too much of that yet. Maybe we'll see that in your show or some other thing. But anyway, this is but really cool. Again, sort of like that one on the royalty. This would be great for tribal or a nature lover.
Sure.
It's got that great look of the Western influence. And again, the red is just really perfect for it to really shout out the background to bring into the situation. Okay, do we have another paper one?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. I'll get it out of here so you can.
Well, here's another
really cool colors here. This is to be very contemporary. I like this one a lot.
Yeah, this one's called Decoy, and
so we have on Easter. Excuse me, we didn't tell the sizes, but they're all about the same. What would you say the size for the people at home, so they can picture it in their living room or whatever?
Maybe 28 by 30, maybe something like that.
These, probably would require some framing because of the pliability of the paper. They won't stand by themselves, so you can either get it put on foam or you can get on board and have it stretched. So go ahead. It's called Decoy, so obviously this would be a duck, is that right?
Yeah.
Those birds you told us about?
Yep.
And again, I love the way he does the body of the bird or the duck with these, to me, I see meaning in that. He's saying, no, son, that's fine. I don't want to project meaning. But again, taking the colors to really put an importance to draw the eye to the center of the bird or the bird's body is really cool. And just, again, a nice touch in the how'd you do this on this background thing? Kind of to give it a look of maybe water or sky. It's kind of really pretty.
Well, it's just acrylic and lots of layering and pushing paint around. And, I do lots of erasing with it's the good thing about acrylics is you can scrape them off and just wait 10-15 minutes and they're kind of dry enough to go back over it with another color. So layering is pretty easy. And like with oil,
so it's like whiteout for typing. So that's
it's great. And, oil is
correct some imperfections much easier than the oil. It takes a long time.
You really got to plan stuff out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, again, folks, this would really be a neat piece because of again in a contemporary situation. Now we're gonna let you see this, but we're gonna move on to some others. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Let's take a look. This is one of my. I think I said 3, but I might have 4. I lied. This is my other favorite piece because of one is the great colors. To me, this is totally different than anything else I've seen him do. So hopefully, he might tell us a little about. Again, a huge double-framed pine thing to give it a lot of dimension, a lot of good looks. But this is just totally, to me, different. Can you tell us about this one? Maybe I'm wrong off base in saying that.
Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of style. One thing with my paintings, I try to just do whatever I feel like doing.
Well, that's important.
So yeah, I think a lot of folks kind of get drawn into doing the same kind of thing over and over, repetition. But I like to spread things out and just do different things, however I feel, and obviously it's an umbrella.
Do we have a title for this or an inspiration umbrella?
Yeah. It's umbrella, and again, those check marks that show up occasionally in my paintings.
But what I love is the umbrella really looks almost like a mosaic. Mm-hmm. It almost looks like tile. The way you've done it with the streaks, and again, I'm not sure whether those are streaks or how you perform those linear lines, basically, but it really adds a dimension. I don't know if that was your impression of rain coming down or what, but to me, it really gives a wonderful mosaic. So it really looks like beyond the art canvas, looks more like a tile piece. And again, what's great about this piece, folks, just the opposite. Not a lot of vibrancy, a lot of subdued tone, so it can go absolutely anywhere. But just magnificently framed. It's a heavy-duty frame. It's double frames. There's two pieces of wood that surround the inside, so it's really heavy. But at the same time, it gives it that extra look and depth to bring it out further. So this is really, really nice. Okay, then we're getting down to the last few pieces. Let's see if I can get this for you. Hey. Sorry about that, folks. All right, now this one. All right, let's see what we can do. Should I put it down?
Yeah, this is just acrylic and some watercolor. There's a little bit of house paint in there.
So what does it say on the side?
On paper. And Eric Rothheim is the guy who invented aerosol.
Oh.
So this is my sort of
tribute to him.
Tribute to him, and yeah, if you look close, it's got different types of graffiti in there. Of course, I didn't do it with.
So this is an aerosol can expressing the aerosol here. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of a play on that. I didn't actually use the aerosol.
Not literally, but
yeah.
You see, I took it totally, did not know. I really saw this as a lovely vase of flowers, and I really loved it because it wasn't the bright colors. It was done in more muted style, unusual shades, flowers that you normally don't see in that color. But once again, you take your subtlety of your meaning and put it in a piece that can be used or misconstrued any place. And again, this is a narrow piece on paper, maybe almost 3 feet long, or 2.5 feet long, and maybe almost 2 feet wide or 1.5 feet wide. Again, something that would be great, and it's almost like poster art.
Sure.
I could see this easily being converted to lithography into a poster because it really does remind me of a poster. That's why I thought maybe this was someone else's, that you were doing a poster for their exhibit or something else, because it really looks great. But so you see, folks, you can misunderstand it and still appreciate. That's what's so good about art. You don't have to have literal meanings and literal definitions to everything. So really cool. So this is really got double meanings from my concern. All right, now before we go to our last two pieces, let's repeat. We're talking to Tony Nozerro, an artist, a recent artist who has kind of not given up but changed his musical career, and we're kind of glad he did, because not that his musical wasn't good. In fact, we might hear that. We invited him to appear on one of our restaurant shows if he wants to get his band together again. He feels like he can polish up the instruments. But at the same time, this, to me, the visual is so much more important. So we're really glad he's pursuing this career, even if he continues a musical career as well. We're glad that he's here. We're glad that he chose us to live and to distribute, because we feel our art community is extremely vibrant, and especially for a small town. I mean, towns like Atlanta and all, which are much larger than us now, even more so, much more progressive. have a good artist community, but I think ours is a much more cohesive artist. It's really the bohemian style of art as opposed to strictly things that you're going to see in museums or buy for commercial endeavors. And that's what I like about here. We still have so much individual expression where it's not kind of sanitized or gotten into too much glitch. And I think it's because of again the laissez-faire style of New Orleans itself. No matter how much they try and take it out of us, it's still going to be there. And so that's why I think it's so conducive to the art community, and that's why we're still a vibrant community, even though the town's not that big. All right, let's go back to this one that you maybe took a glimpse at. As we said, we had this big yellow one before that was part of his exhibit. This is also one, and this is a great one. And for those who know, I guess this is Theodore Bickel. You can't see that. And what is this slogan around him?
Well, it says "Liberty through loneliness," and
wow.
It actually comes from Taxi Driver, one of my favorite movies.
So De Niro head, huh?
Yeah, so this is like the Travis Bickle, which I'm not sure who you said.
I thought it was Theodore Bickel.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, go ahead.
Well, anyway, it's sort of my take on his sort of character. And it's funny when I did this.
Now I hate to say, is this a balloon?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
no, okay.
I sort of
hate to keep putting words in your mouth.
Well, no, I mean, I kind of looked at it as maybe like a nickel or something, or some kind of a dime or something, But with this one is funny. When I did it, I misspelled loneliness.
I didn't want to point out if that was deliberate.
Yeah, well,
because the way I spell it is an E between the N and the L.
It's the way most people spell it, I think. But I finished it and I was like really happy with it, and I was like, oh man, I misspelled loneliness.
But I think it's more important.
Well, yeah, and then I circled it like when in grade school when you.
Well, you line through the mistake.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I graded my own work here, which was kind of my own little pot shot at myself for screwing that up, but I think it works. I think it's kind of funny.
Oh, I think it's great. I can say I think it's the vibrancy of the colors, the size. This is a great piece, a square piece. What do you think? And it's on canvas. What size would this be about?
It's probably 30 by 30. Yeah. This will be in the show as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the two big yellow pieces, the one we saw earlier, the Bicycle Bonetto, and this will be in the show. But again, just like he brought, 12 or 14 pieces a day, he's going to have that many or more in the exhibit. So you're only seeing two. So don't say, well, I saw his work on the TV. We're hoping this is going to induce you to go see him at several places, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes when we wrap it up. But this is really a cool one. I think, once again, it's got a lot of things going for it. It's very basic colors, black, white, and yellow, or blue, white, and yellow. My favorite's blue, white, and yellow, but it's the same thing with a lot of little subtleties and nuances that really probably make it more valuable than what he thought when he actually was doing it. Okay, we've got one more big piece to show you, and then we're going to... let's see if we can get this in. Now, this is huge, folks. This is, again, on canvas. You can do it like that?
Yeah, I got it.
What size? This is almost 4 feet.
40. Yeah, this is 44 by 40.
Almost
40.
Square, huh?
Yeah, almost square.
Real big piece, folks. So again, you got to have a nice sized wall. And again, this looks like a museum piece or a gallery piece. Pretty plain with regard to some of the vibrancy we've seen. But why don't you tell us what was your inspiration and/or title?
Yeah. Well, this is called Stolen.
Stolen. Okay.
And it really comes from I went to a coffee shop a while back, and there was a little flyer that somebody had their car stolen, and I basically saw the flyer, and it just looked like a painting to me. Like it was all just typed out and a little goofy picture of a car, and it was something that I just saw from it, and so that was the inspiration for it.
And these actually. Some of the your type, your again, the script that would have advertised for someone to return it or
it's everything that was on the flyer.
Cool,
and it's just my little interpretation of it.
Really cool. So, and again, done in very muted shades. So I really don't, looking at the picture, it really doesn't do it justice. You really would have to see this one in person because it's such an expanse of white and the color thrown on it that really doesn't do much for define. It's very expressionistic, but just truly a great piece. And what a great title. Well, with all the crime and things that we have in the city, we can keep Tony working for a long time because so this would be great. Maybe the police department should use some of these art pieces to interest people to be a little bit more cognizant of the stuff going on and solve some of these crimes. Really, really a neat piece. Again, very expressionistic and shows you the great variety that Tony's doing for us. All right, now what we want to do now is, again, we've shown you about 14 pieces. We just lean it like that for now. I think I can balance it. Is talk a little bit more about where you can see Tony. Again, folks, you can, as you've seen, you can call in if anybody's out there watching this afternoon wants to speak to Tony or myself about Rtist Revue, and at the end we'll tell you about Restaurant Review next week's show, but we want to finish up here. Don't hesitate to call. We got about 15 minutes. We'll take maybe one call if you'd like to call in. But if not, as we mentioned, a key here is that Tony will be opening his one-man show at the Terrence Sanders Gallery. It's on 936 Royal Street down, of course, in the French Quarter. And it's premiering with an opening reception on Saturday, March the 8th. We don't have the exact time, but all of them start either around 5 or 6 to about 9 o'clock. And like I said, as you know, if you have been to any of the those first night openings, there's almost every gallery is open and has some type of showing. So it's great to make an evening of going one-to-one, getting a little refreshment, seeing all, again, the typical New Orleans, not only sometimes seeing the art, but also seeing who's seeing the art. So it's one of those things where it must be seen. So we would, and again, he said he's going to be there for a full 2 weeks if you're not available for March 8th. But we'd love for you to get out there. You can call the gallery. We don't have his number, but you can look that up if you have any particular questions about times or for during the day or evenings or during the week if you can't make it on the 8th. But let's talk about a few other places of venue and other things where you also will see Tony. Now, he's got one coming up before March 8th on this Saturday, March the 1st. All right, Tony, tell us about that particular one.
Yeah, this is the Constance Delicate Burdens book release art show. And it's a book compiled of a bunch of local New Orleans artists. There's going to be probably 20, I would think 15 to 20 different pieces there, different artists, photographs, paintings, drawings. And the book is just coming out. It's beautiful. And actually this piece that we just showed you will be hanging there for us.
This was actually featured in the book?
Yeah, that one's in the book, and I had a couple other ones that I didn't bring today are in there too.
And will they also be at this exhibit? Will they be exhibiting or just you all?
Well, that's the only one of mine that'll be there, but all the other artists in the book, or most of them, will have
at least a piece that's in the book with him.
Yeah.
And is it a reception type thing, or what is it?
Yeah. It's at Barrister's on
Gallery
St. Claude.
St. Claude, right. And you know what time that is?
I think it's sort of gallery
Same time.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, not daytime only.
No.
Evening.
No. Yeah, it's...
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's great. So that's Saturday, March 1st at Barrister's. Again, you won't see a lot of Tony's work, but you want to meet and greet the artists. And I'm sure maybe you can then set up if you want to see something individually, or wait the following week and catch him at Terrence Sanders' gallery. Now, in addition to that, he also mentioned to you that we're post Katrina as part of our rebuilding our neighborhoods. We've gone to something that was very successful before on a smaller scale, and that is art markets. If you remember, for those who are natives or have been here before Katrina, we had originally the one that's very well known and is the Bywater Market. That was the originator, and that's what the last Saturday of the month.
It's the third Saturday.
You got to watch them. Each one's different.
Yeah.
The third Saturday of the month, and invariably that's where everyone went, because for years that was the only thing. And then the Mid-City Market came, which for those who remember were originally for one time was actually on Canal and Carrollton, did very well. Post Katrina, they moved it to City Park, and because of all its rebuilding, it's now moved, you said, to Palmer Park. Is that right?
Well, the Bywater one is...
No, not Bywater, the Mid-City.
Oh, yeah, right, that one, yeah.
And that, I believe, is on the last Saturday of the month. That's at Palmer Park on Claiborne and Carrollton. Now, do you go there at all, or just in Bywater?
I don't do that one. I do the Bywater.
Okay, so the Bywater, so if you want to see Tony in person, besides these, if you can't make any of the gallery things, you can see some of his work along with a lot of other artists at the Bywater, if you don't mind a trip down there. It's a great Saturday event. There's a lot of little restaurants around there. Elizabeth's, which we've had in the show, wonderful restaurant, although it's pretty crowded, but at the same time, a great place to do. And of course, it's not just art. They have crafts and even some edibles. People make things. And so if you've never been to one, folks, it's a great gift that now the city's spreading to all areas, so you don't have to, like I said, for the people who did not want to go all the way to the Bywater unless they live there, now you can almost find one in almost every community. I know in my community there's the Ferret Street Market, which is on the first Saturday of the month on Ferret Street, which has, again, a whole plethora of stuff, not just art. So you're bound to find it, but if you want to see Tony's art specifically, again, we said on March 1st you can see him at the Barrister's Gallery along with several others, but very limited work. March 8th, for 2 weeks, I guess that would be the 22nd. You can contact Terrence Sanders if you want to see it other than this opening night, Saturday night. You'll see 14 people. You told us you had a theme for that. We didn't mention it. What's the theme of the exhibit?
Yeah, the exhibit's called Solitary Definement. And,
very good.
Well, it sort of comes from partly my transition of going from music to art. In the music thing, sort of surrounded by people and noise and music and that kind of thing every day, and just going from that to the art studio, which you're basically alone, trying to hack out your what you're trying to say and things like that. Solitude, so in putting the show together, Terrence came to my studio and we worked on it together, and he actually helped me out to I have so many pieces at the studio, and he helped out picking out which ones, and we kind of worked on it together a little bit, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think it makes good sense.
Definitely. And lastly, folks, you see what I'm holding out. We get a close-up of it. There's a brand new I always wanted to do an art magazine back in the 80s, featuring our artists, and of course couldn't get the funding. So Terrence Sanders, who owns the gallery and is an artist himself, has come up with a brand new magazine called Art Voices. This is the first issue, which was January of this year. And I don't want to turn the pages because of the glare, but it's filled with artwork, and also commentary by artists, about artists, or reviews of their exhibits. Gives you a lot of the gallery information. It also will do things it's not limited to art. It also will be poetry. It'll be the whole gamut as it expands. And the reason why we're giving a plug to Terrence Sanders' new rag is because Tony will be featured along with several others in the next issue. This is the February issue, excuse me. It always comes out early. The March issue will come out this Saturday, March 1st again. This is a free rag, even though when you see it, you can say, wow, I wonder how that could be so free because of the quality of the paper and the beautiful artwork in it. I would encourage you to pick it. It is supposedly at a lot of the coffee shops and the other areas that you see. We would like to recommend you, if you're in the Uptown area, our favorite little cafe, bistro, our neighborhood is called Il Posto. So we've been trying to get them on the show, but they really don't do hot food. They do good, phenomenal Italian sandwiches, paninis, all this stuff with great wines and a wonderful coffee shop. A great bunch of brews with a lot of fresh has soups done by a local guy who's a very famous chef. We won't give his name out. And also their bakery products come from one of the most famous bakers. So we've asked that she be a distributor. So if you have a chance, go and patronize her place. Again, it's Il Posto, and they're in the 4600 block of Dryad Street. So that's in the beginning of the third block, right on the corner of Cadiz, off in Napoleon. If you haven't investigated it, you know how we always give you new restaurants. Been open about 4 months now. But whether you go for no other reason but to pick up this magazine, there you'll be able to read in depth about Tony and his exhibit. So that, remember, that's coming out this Saturday. Or go to your local coffee shop and ask for Art Voices. That's the latest by Terrence Sanders. Okay, he's the editor. Wanted to tell you, let's see, anything else we wanted to tell you about the magazine. I think that, like I said, get it from Il Posto if you'd like to give them a try, or any place local. Anything else you want to say about the magazine? Other than your article, will there be some pictures, hopefully, of your work in there as well?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it's going to look in there, if they're going to have photos of it or not. But it's going to be a long interview, and
right.
It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool magazine. I'm really pretty impressed.
Well, we're happy to plug it. We told them that we asked for their permission, and told them that we would love to help them in maybe bringing some of the other artists that they will feature on this show as well, to give them a little more exposure, so that you all can see them, because sometimes people just can't get out on a particular time. So this way, between all of this, between our show, these exhibits, these art markets, then you can certainly get to see our community and get art at a reasonable thing. So again, we don't give out prices or anything, but as you know, that most of these artists are going to be reasonable with regard to their fees, and even if they're going to be very, very successful, most of them are emerging artists. Now, again, thank you, Tony. Anything else before I tell them about our going back to our regular program?
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we enjoyed it. You were a great testimony to your craft. So, like I say, keep plugging it down, regardless of whether you go back to the music or not. All right, folks, we should return to Restaurant Review next Wednesday, beginning of March. We've got a great new restaurant coming up for you on what street uptown is restaurants on? Magazine Street. How many more? There are 2 new restaurants and 1 waiting to open. Well, we've got this one's been open a month and a half, and it's called Maya, M-A-Y-A. Give you a little clue about it. It's in down to the Garden District. Beautiful little place. It was formerly an art gallery. Had sat vacant for about 3 years. A year before Katrina, it went vacant. The 2 gentlemen who are the chef and the owner have really refurbished this place themselves. The food is excellent. So look forward for us for next week. Please come back to us next Wednesday and Saturday. As you know, these shows are on Wednesday and Saturday. We appreciate you visiting us today and introducing the artists. Go and see them and their works. Come back and see us next week. And what we'll do is, if not, we'll look for you at a restaurant in town.